You're listening to a CNA podcast.
Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Andrea Heng, and welcome to the Money Talks podcast. This is where we talk about everything there is to know about personal finance. Now, before we go on to today's episode, if you haven't already, could you please follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube Music, because this is how you can be notified whenever a new episode drops. So my producer, June, is here today for some quick financial updates. What do you have for us, June?
All right, I'm going to start with something heavy today.
Okay.
So, back in October last year, the Red Sea crisis majorly disrupted international trade, causing ships that go between Europe and Asia to reroute themselves.
Right.
So now, escalating tensions between Iran and Israel might lead to further disruptions.
That's correct. So how are we going to be affected, though?
This might result in higher shipping costs. So, because of limited shipping routes, the ships will have to spend a longer time at sea, incurring more fuel costs and causing freight charges to go up.
Yeah.
So, this might translate to prices of goods going up.
It looks like this is something we will have to monitor, because I don't think that this issue is going to resolve itself anytime soon. All right, what's next?
So, this is for all you online shoppers out there. I'm looking at you, Andrea.
Okay, fine.
The Ministry of Home Affairs has released their annual e-commerce marketplace transaction safety ratings, and the results are in.
Okay, so the ratings are meant to tell us how far the platforms have gone to protect users like us from scams. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So the likes of Amazon, Lazada, Q10 and Shopee have all rated highly, meaning that they have implemented all the safety measures to combat scams.
Okay, yay.
Yep. So this includes verifying seller authenticity, monitoring fraudulent seller behavior,
Right.
maintaining transaction records and data. They have secure payment options and mechanisms for reporting and resolving disputes.
Okay, so that's great news. I hate to ask, but who's on the naughty list?
Unfortunately, Carousel and Facebook Marketplace still have some ways to go.
Ooh.
So they have some safety features, but not all.
But the thing is, if we take a broader look at this, right, June, how bad really is the state of e-commerce scams here in Singapore?
So according to this year's Police Annual Scams and Cybercrime Brief, in 2023, there were 9,783 reported scams, almost double from 2022. So more needs to be done.
Oh wow, we are really approaching that 10,000 mark. Let's hope the 2024 numbers are not anywhere close to this. Hopefully we're safer and smarter online too. So shop safely and responsibly online, okay everyone? Okay, I don't know about you, but I near squealed with excitement when I learned about the updates to the SkillsFuture initiative during Deputy Prime Minister Lawrence Wong's budget announcement in February. So the first thing I did was to go to the SkillsFuture website. I logged in using my SingPass, checked my SkillsFuture credit balance, of course. I'm slightly embarrassed about this, but I'm also relishing the fact that I still have $1,000 in my account. Half of that was actually a one-time top-up, if you remember, that we received during the pandemic in 2020, and that actually expires at the end of next year. So the first 500 that you received, no expiry. The second tranche, that top-up, that expires at the end of next year, 2025, okay? Still, it sparked a chain reaction in my brain, and I began to revisit the opportunity to learn a new skill, broaden my mind with some new knowledge, and it made me question what the next 20 to 30 years of my work life would look like. Is this now the time where I pivot? Or do I build upon my existing work function and broaden that work function where exactly I am, right? And that's exactly what we're going to explore in today's episode. This is in collaboration with the Ministry of Finance in support of Budget 2024. And I cannot do this alone, of course. For this, I'll need some professional help. And she's right here on the Money Talks podcast. She is Peggy Lim, Director of the Public Engagement Division at SkillsFuture Singapore. I'm so excited to have you here, Peggy. have so many questions, but welcome.
Thank you, Andrea.
Okay, so just as a basic sort of fundamental walkthrough of what SkillsFuture really is, does every Singapore worker get these credits? What happens if you don't use them? Where do I begin? What happens now?
Okay. So if you're a Singaporean, when you reach 25, you get your first $500 credit.
Okay.
And as you've correctly pointed out, in 2020, during the pandemic, Singaporeans get a top-up of $500 if you're 25, and if you're 40, you get another $500. So all in all, if you're 40, you get $1,500 worth of SkillsFuture credit. And come 1st May, you get another $4,000. So yes, there's a lot of financial support for you as an individual, as a Singaporean, if you need to upskill. Then, of course, the big question is, what then do you do with the credits and how do you upskill? I was just thinking to myself that buying a training course, it's not like you going to, say, Sheng Siong supermarket, buying grocery, where you can go in and then you can pick up the produce and you can look at healthy labels and all, and you probably know what you want to buy. Buying a course is a lot more abstract because first and foremost, you also need to know what is it that you want. And the honest truth is that not every one of us is absolutely aware of our skills needs, our skills gaps, and also not every one of us may be privileged or fortunate enough to have that conversation with a supervisor. Your supervisor might say, hey, Peggy, actually, your communication skills not so great. You might need to improve on that. Go for a comms course. But then there are help around. So over the years, SkillsFuture has invested quite a lot of resources in providing advisory to the individuals. So if you allow me, I'll go into that. So there are actually four different ways. First and foremost, of course, you mentioned about checking your SkillsFuture credit and all. But before that, there's like the My SkillsFuture portal. It's mine because it's personal to you, right? And you can go in there, and if you are like the Grab learner, meaning you know where you want to get to, you could just type in the course. And there you go. You have your list of options that you can choose from. As to which one would be most suitable for you, of course, you will have to read the course synopsis. Find out a little bit about the training provider. And the best thing is, if a course was already subscribed by previous trainees, they would have indicated their feedback. So you could preview the course for yourself to determine whether they are suitable for you and whether they are credible before you sign up. Now, of course, nothing to stop you from calling up the training provider, further inquire. So that's one. So that's the digital self-help way. If you are somebody who might need a little bit more help because you're not too certain how you want to best use your credit, we have what we call the Skills and Training Advisory. So in that advisory session, it's complimentary and you do get your one-on-one session with a skills ambassador. So the skills ambassador will then guide you, first of all, to find out your career preferences. Where are you orientating yourself towards? There are tools that we could help you to do that.
And these SkillsFuture ambassadors are trained to look out and ask you the right questions.
That's right, they are. So you can choose to meet them virtually online, or you could meet them at our Lifelong Learning Institute. So that's the second resource. The third one is, if you're shy, don't want to do the one-on-one, want to join a class, that's also possible. So we do have the SkillsFuture Advice workshop. And these workshops are very interesting because they are done at the grassroots together with the community development councils, the CDCs. So you could actually sign up for a SkillsFuture Advice workshop that's very near your home. And in that workshop, you get to learn about skills trend, sectorial trends. So if there's a specific sector that you're interested in, you actually could sign up for a very specific industry course. To learn about what's
it's really
in demand.
Reaching out to the ground.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And the fourth one is, for 2 years, we've launched the Skills Report for the Future Economy. Skills Demand for the Future Economy. If you've read it, it actually talks about the care economy, the green economy, the digital economy, the skills that are in demand, what are some of the transferable skills. My colleagues in the skills development group, they actually spent a lot of time looking at data, interviewing people, and they compiled a very rich report
Okay.
So if you're someone who is a bit more literary and you want to read, that's the resource for you, right? And the last one would be also digital. The Workforce Singapore, they have actually launched what they call a Careers Finder. So there's like a digital advisory tool where you could interact with, key in your career aspiration, and then you will actually spit out recommendations for you, jobs as well as training programs.
And that one, if you have a blank canvas, you don't know where to go, that might be a good sort of first direction, right?
That's
to
right.
take, right?
That's right.
Which, okay, so that brings me to my personal predicament.
Sure.
So you've talked about how we can use the resources on SkillsFuture, for SkillsFuture, how to identify what works for me. Ever since we got the top up in 2020, I have been tossed between pursuing a Mandarin language course, which is something I always felt I needed to equip myself with. I was tossed between that and taking a social media marketing program, which I felt I could use at work, right? How to increase engagement on my social media profile, what kinds of SEO language I need to use, etc. Right? So it's a pretty tough one for me to choose from, because what both I feel are really good skills to have. So there are over 29,000 courses that are SkillsFuture claimable. How do I even pick one? How do I choose? How do I narrow down and make sure that I'm making the right decision?
Well, you don't have to choose. You can go for both.
I could, right?
You can. So what I didn't explain is that for actually almost all of these SkillsFuture funded courses, there's what we called the cost fee subsidy, the back-end funding. Like transparent to many of us, but again, if you're somebody who is 40, SSG actually provides up to 90% cost fee funding. And you just need to pay the 10% that's not subsidized. And you can pay it through your SkillsFuture credit.
Right.
So you can actually pay for your Mandarin course as well as your social media marketing
course. I can have my cake and eat it.
You absolutely do, and you probably have balance.
Yeah,
for you to do more.
Would it actually be unwise perhaps to select a course out of pure interest and curiosity instead of approaching the course as a skills upgrade that's related to my current job or that I think that will be useful in my career later on? Because some would consider that, it's a waste of money. You want to optimize and maximize the money that the government's given you, right? Because, and we've seen anecdotes also of people going for aircon repair courses, hairdressing courses. They are genuinely interested in those skills. It's just that they're not necessarily using those skills to generate income.
Yeah.
Would that be considered unwise or a waste of money, as these people say?
Okay. So maybe before I answer the question, let me just share a very personal experience of mine. So I've used my SkillsFuture credit for a emotional resilience course, and I wanted to take up that course because I wanted to learn the skills that would be useful for my voluntary work. And in that class, I met my course mate, and one of them, she's a stay-home mother, but she said she has been using her SkillsFuture credit and she took up a hair cutting course. Because she wanted to use the skill to go to the old folks' home to cut hair for the elderly.
Okay.
So with the SkillsFuture credit, it's really a form of empowerment that the government is also giving to yourself, right? You have the credits on hand. How do you want to use it? So whether this is for you to pursue something that you may not necessarily use it for work,
right?
But then there would be maybe the majority of us that would need to use the SkillsFuture credit to advance your career or to pivot, because you know the impending risk that maybe your jobs might be at risk and you want to pre-skill yourself, and that's what the credits are for.
Right.
But in order for you to make the decision, you want to make sure that it's a sound one, that you're pre-skilling up yourself for something that's in demand.
Correct.
So how do you know whether something is in demand? So I've talked about the resources, right? Talk to people. And maybe it could also mean joining a professional association.
Okay.
Right? So like for yourselves, there are like media associations.
There are.
You might want to go in and network and understand how the industry is going, whether that's an industry that you want to continue to deepen your skills and progress in, or there could be some other thing. So networking is also important for yourself to keep abreast of what's available out there.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more, especially coming from the media. Networking is the key.
That's right.
Because I turned turn 40 this year. That's right, I'm not ashamed to reveal my age because this is a point in time where revealing your age is highly beneficial. Because at this year's budget, DPM Lawrence Wong announced what you mentioned, the $4,000 mid-career top-up for those age 40 and above.
That's right.
This is arriving in our accounts as of 1st of May. So Labor Day, very apt, I must say. And here's the bonus point. It does not expire. So effectively, you have about, for me, I will have about 4,500 non-expiring credits, SkillsFuture credits. So I have this money now. Do I shift my strategy for spending my SkillsFuture credits? So is this the point where I really have to sit and ask myself, how do I future-proof my career?
First of all, congratulations for reaching 40 in Singapore.
Thank you very much.
Should not be shy when you reach 40.
I agree. I'm normalizing turning 40. Yes.
All right. So yes, the credit, the $4,000 and $500 if you have not used it, will not expire. What this means is you don't have to rush to make a decision.
That's a fair point.
So plan carefully and take the time to think about, okay, maybe a big cliche, but how do you see yourself 3 years' time, 5 years' time? And then if you again need to talk to people, career counselors, do that. If you need some self-awareness of what your strengths are, we actually do have tools like that on my SkillsFuture portal. It's called the Skills Assessments tool. So you could try that. I think where I'm coming from is that it's important for you to understand where you are in your career development stage. Be conscientious about planning it, and then find out about the skilling options that are available out there, and more importantly, the jobs that are in demand, right?
Yes.
Before you plan.
Because there's no point going for a course only to find that the job market isn't there for you.
That's right.
Now, we can't have a conversation about upgrading our skills, reskilling, or any form of training without broaching the subject of AI. At this juncture, I must ask, should I then seriously consider an AI-related course with this SkillsFuture credit in order to arm myself for the future of work? Because, and I'm only asking this because there is a national effort geared towards not just being capable in AI, but specializing in it too, because Singapore wants to be an AI hub. So should that be the direction I'm taking?
For this question, I would give an affirmative yes. I think it is important for someone to understand the implications of AI on your work, whether you need to spend your credits to learn AI. Again, there are plenty of resources out there that you could access, whether this is your YouTube videos. You could read about it, but there will be, again, some of us who would prefer to go for a more structured kind of a format to learn from an expert. So yes, I think it's important for all of us to understand what AI means and how it might help us in our work, or how it might actually pose threats to the kind of work that we do.
Yeah. But what if AI really is not my cup of tea? Are there other ways that I can think about future-proofing my career? Could you walk me through the other options that are outside of AI?
Yeah. So data is definitely an area.
Oh, still?
It's essential, yes. I would say apart from the technical skills, we have in SSG developed what we call the critical core skills, or these are your soft skills. So before you even learn your technical skills, I think it's important that you yourself are motivationally prepared to learn these harder skills, and also are prepared to adapt to the very fast changing environment. So there are 3, I would say, groups of skills in the critical core skills framework. I would call the head skills. So these are like your, how do you think critically, right?
Yeah.
So those skills are important because bosses always look out for people who are able to critique and
strategize,
right? And then the second group will be what I call the hard skills. These are how you interact with people.
Yeah.
Which
people underestimate the importance of, by the way.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And the last one would be action. How do you use your skills? How do you use the hard and the head skills? right?
How do you combine the two in execution?
That's right. That's right.
And it's great that these are available to try and identify your strengths, right? So we've discussed the SkillsFuture mechanics. We've tackled the challenging task of spending our credits wisely. So I'd like to introduce a scenario here.
Okay.
Say I work in F&B right now, and I'm really keen on picking up a different set of skills that seemingly on the surface looks unrelated to F&B, coding, for example, right? What do I need to work out with my employer so that I can continue working there, but in a new capacity, a new role perhaps that will leverage my new coding skills? What conversation do I need to have here?
Andrea, I need you to help me. Can this be a message to all our working colleagues out there?
Yeah.
Because I think the majority of us are not as bold as you to say, hey boss, I want to learn a new skill and give me the job opportunity. Or
Exactly.
give me
There's
the
a lot
task
of
opportunity.
hesitance and reluctance about that because they're
Yeah.
always afraid about, but is my boss going to be okay with this?
So yes, definitely encourage everyone to have that skills conversation with your supervisor, with your boss, and find out, maybe you might be thinking data is an area, but the company or the SME may have some other needs. I can assure you that the boss will be quite heartened if you're able to step forward and say, hey, actually, I want to learn a new skill and do more for the company.
Exactly.
And if there's a need, the company might also then express it to you. And if there's a mutual interest, then it may not necessarily be data. It could be, again, marketing. It could be customer success. It could be many other areas that you could also pick up new skills and pivot internally.
Yeah. And here's a message to employers as well. This could actually be a way for you to rebuild employee loyalty.
We did a research project that was with the Ministry of Trade and Industry. That was a couple of years ago. And we actually looked at data of companies that have sent their employees for training. And what we have found out was that companies that have done so, they actually managed to retain their people better.
Okay, so even though SkillsFuture credit is provided for by the government, I think it's still a good idea to be discerning with our choices through quality control, QC. And I say this because anecdotally, I've heard of participants who were dissatisfied with their courses. Some say it's too short. Some say, I'm only learning very surface stuff. Or another one says, not enough hands-on learning experience. So I feel like it's almost as if you're choosing a university where you're looking at rankings. We talked about reviews, right? Other ways that we could check the quality and credibility of the course provider?
Okay, first, the reviews that we've posted on the website, they came directly from the learners who have attended the course.
Right.
We also do road shows with the training providers, and I think those are the best time for you to also get in touch with the training providers to find out more about the quality of their trainers. And every year we have the SkillsFuture Festival.
Yes.
Right, it's a month-long festival. So that's the best time for you to also then catch the training providers. So I would say this would be the more reliable resources. Of course, if you have friends who have gone through those programs.
Referrals,
Yeah. And again, I think to be fair to the training providers, I think it's the onus is on the individual to go and find out.
Yeah. Reach out to these institutions.
To reach out to these institutions. Yeah, it's not quite possible for them to customize the class to individual trainee. You know, you talked about curriculum, right?
Yeah.
So they can contextualize and pick a training provider that really understands the industry, because they are going to give you the best examples. And some of them even will have industry practitioners to come in during the class to share, right? But if you do expect them to know who you are, your proficiency level, and to cater to just yourself, I think that's really a bit too personalized that none of the training providers would be able to do that.
I really want to say thank you for helping us out on Money Talks. This was quite an important episode, and I'm glad that you were able to join us. Some of us might find SkillsFuture the catalog and the process rather intimidating and sometimes overwhelming, right? But you've made it so clear and so much more approachable for us. So thank you, Peggy.
I just wanted to add the point about feeling overwhelmed with that 29,000 courses. Don't, because today you don't see that 29,000 when you punch in something. The recommendations actually quite personalized right now to what you're searching for. And the reason why we're able to do so is because we have actually deployed AI.
There you go.
So there you go. So behind the course recommendation, there's actually a powerful engine that tries to narrow the search for you so you don't end up with choice paralysis.
Yeah.
So don't feel overwhelmed. Please go on to My SkillsFuture portal to explore. Take your time.
Indeed. I think time is the biggest investment. I'm afraid I cannot let you go just yet. So we have a new segment. It's called Questions from a Hat, and it's exactly as the name suggests. So there are 5 questions in this hat. I'll toss them up. All you need to do is pick one, hand it to me, and I'll read it out to you. Sound good?
Sure.
All right, Peggy, moment of truth. Your question is... What was your biggest financial regret?
Can I answer it negatively? I actually don't.
It's a double negative. So you have not made any financial decisions that you've regretted?
I've not, but I've made a huge financial commitment in my earlier days.
Right.
Where I actually quit my corporate job to invest in a small retail.
Wow. That's a huge plunge.
Yeah, it's a flower shop, and I learned the skill on the job.
There you go.
Nothing is impossible.
So if I wanted to ask for a customized bouquet, could I come to you?
Of course. I'm glad to do it for you.
Peggy, you have been so fun, such a fun guest on Money Talks. Thank you so much for being such a sport.
Thank you.
And to you, listener, I hope this episode has been especially helpful. There's no better time than now to prepare for the future, okay? Think about your skills for the future. No pun intended, I promise. Okay, just take your time. Those credits, they don't expire. Also, please don't forget to let us know your feedback in the comments section. You can also leave a rating on the platform from which you are streaming Money Talks. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, plus YouTube Music as well. If you want to share it with your friends and loved ones. A huge thank you as well to the Money Talks team made up of Crispina Robert, Tiffany Ang, Junaini Johari, Joanne Chan, and Saya Wind. I'm Andrea Heng. Till the next episode.